And there you have it, the inauguration of the theme for Behind the Lens.
Woohoo!
And Below the Line. It is Monday, January the 5th, 2015. New year, new show. Old me. But
new attitude, maybe? New attitude. New outlook.
Uh-huh.
I'm Debbie Lynn Elias. Some of you know me as Movie Shark de Bloor. Some of you read me in print. Some of you read me online. Some of you wish I would shut up sometimes. But we're here for the next hour every Monday, and we are going to go behind the lens and below the line on films new, old. I am thrilled to have with me today as my co-host, Greg and I never can say your name
Greg
right.
Srisavasdi. I just came in from the street.
Yeah, I know. Greg.
I live right next door. I'm a fill-in for a fill-in.
Greg is one of my favorite colleagues in the press corps, and we share many roundtables and fun together.
And you ask all the good questions.
Well, thank you. Yeah. You asked some good ones too.
Sure.
Yeah,
I know.
on occasion.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
And of course, a real treat for me is an old friend who is even a little older today because it's also his birthday.
Wiser. Let's say wiser.
And he chose old, wise, and well preserved, Chad Miller.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today.
I am so thrilled that you chose to come here on your birthday.
Best birthday gift ever.
Aww.
Yeah. 3-0, like we said.
Yes.
3-0.
For the 12th time.
For the 12th time. Okay. Well, to let everybody know what we're going to do here, since we are a brand new show, I've been a film critic for over 25 years. I worked production before. I still do production. I executive produce projects. Grew up in the business. My dad, many of you out there knew him and knew of him, was with WFIL, WPVI in Philadelphia for 59 years, up until his passing in 2010. So being on a set, being on a sound stage, playing with microphones and cameras, I guess it's genetic in the blood or something. But hopefully some of that knowledge, along with everything I picked up on along the way, will bring you some good entertainment. And as is the Elias Entertainment mantra, educate, enlighten, and entertain.
You know, I never asked you this, but Behind the Lens, was that an immediate get as far as the moniker goes?
Actually, Behind the Lens, I got to give a shout out to Rachel Aberly over at PMK, because Rachel is so instrumental with all of her work as a unit publicist on so many films. She is instrumental in letting me fulfill my passion of talking to the guys behind the lens, the directors, the cinematographers, the camera, the focus pullers, composers. So it was actually Rachel who inspired that out of the blue.
Cool. It's a good name.
I also like it too because the audience is often behind the lens, right? You're seeing what everybody else has created, and so here you are, giving your feedback on what you think some of these movies are trying to represent, and you are speaking for the audience behind the lens as well.
And, hopefully, thanks with interviews, some pre-recorded, some will have live in-studio filmmakers and guests, some they'll be calling in live. So we will get up close and personal with filmmaking. So, let's kick it off here. We just wrapped up 2014, an impressive year for films, and a lot of smaller films that flew under the radar, I think. Now, I know, Chad, you're a big moviegoer.
I like your Birdman pun there, though. Flew under the radar. That's nice.
Oh, nice. Nice.
And it was a very subtle way of sneaking that in.
Sneaking that in. But I know you are at the theater and the movies quite often.
I am. I tend to live in like one theater seat or another. I liked a majority of I think that this was a really good year for cinema. I loved The Imitation Game. I loved The Theory of Everything. I found myself actually crying more time at the movies this year, probably. And I don't know if it's because like it's a transition period in my life. Like I'm, moving out of young boy into old man, and so like I'm understanding a bit more of the narratives that are being happening. But I had like steamy glasses for like a good chunk of the holiday season, watching a bit. Even things like Into the Woods, I just found myself like really, some of those themes really resonating with me.
There were some really emotionally powerful films this year, and you weren't necessarily tearing up out of sadness, but it was also a lot of joy that was coming with the emotional resonance. Now, you mentioned Imitation Game. One of our lovely visual aids here today is the book on which the film The Imitation Game is based.
Indeed.
On Alan Turing.
Nice.
Would you kindly hand me that, sir?
I would love to.
So that this is a book, if you love the film The Imitation Game, if you have any interest in World War II, code breakers, the Enigma machine, this book, Alan Turing, The Enigma by Andrew Hodges, is an amazing book. And I'm all for book movie, pairings. If you see the movie and it comes from a book, go read the book. If you read the book, go see the movie.
I'm really lazy. I might just actually read the pictures in the middle.
Oh!
Because these are pretty pictures. But the actual book is excellent.
The book is excellent.
Yeah.
I'm going to put this
It is very historically, wonderful, and it's quite interesting.
Speaking of, I really cried. Kind of cried during Into the Woods.
Yeah.
I really found a lot of the themes really resonant. So did you shed a tear as well, just a little bit? Or?
With Into the Woods, a little bit.
Oh. So you're more heartless than we are. I just wanted to throw that.
You're more the evil witch.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You're the dark part of the forest.
The dark part of the forest?
Well, you and I were saying before, like, we saw this in 1987, right? Like, back on Broadway.
We saw the original.
Right.
Yeah.
We have been in touch with this narrative for a number of years. And so to see it in all these different iterations, I think, like, that's one cathartic journey that you can have just as an audience member seeing that. But also just as you get older in your life, how those themes really resonate or, take on new meaning as you move through various phases of your life.
And that's one of the things that I got to talk to Rob Marshall about. Yes. Is making that translation of Sondheim, because for those that haven't seen the stage production, it very much, the characters speak to the audience. They will actually line up, turn, face you, and speak to you. You can't do that on film. So Rob had to make a lot of adjustments and changes, and I think we're just going to kick it off right now with our first clip with my interview with Rob Marshall. You have dazzled me yet again.
Oh, wow.
Just when I think you can't top what you've done, you wow me again.
Oh,
and
so happy.
You've done it with this, Rob.
Thank
Just
you.
an amazing, amazing job. And one of the things that really stands out for me and speaks to you as a director is that so many directors would have opted to CGI film like this. You didn't. You've got practical sets. You're using miniatures for the giant scenes, which nobody does anymore.
No, I know, so old-fashioned.
What were your considerations in going for the practical effect, steeping your actors in the physical moment, especially with something that has to have the flow, the lyrical flow and melodic flow that complements the music?
Oh, beautifully said. It was a combination of things. It's not my taste, the CGI world. Somehow I find it so, it's magnificent to see, and it can be incredibly thrilling to watch. But somehow with this piece, even though it is a fairy tale, and we live in a heightened reality in this movie, I wanted it to feel real because I wanted the people to be real, because you're asked to care for them. You're asked to really follow their journeys, especially when it gets to the end of the piece. You're really asked to be with them and feel for them. And if you're in this sort of two-dimensional space and world, and I don't know, I think that would be very difficult. I also because I really, for me, it's about the actor filmmaking. That's what I love. I love great performances. That's what I love. That's the most exciting thing for me to watch in film. I like to give the actors the best chance to do that. And for me, it's being in a real space, not like in a green room somewhere, just trying to pretend they're doing something. I feel like if they can be in a real woods, Granny's tree, for instance, is a real tree, in Windsor Great Park, or the tree that Jack is climbing in Giants in the Sky is a real tree, real castle that we went to Dover Castle, and somehow I just feel it brings it all to life in a sort of much more true way, because it's tangible, and I like to give the actors that feeling of being a part of the world.
Now, did that become a help or a hindrance, an asset or a detriment when you're working with Dion and with Wyatt?
Yes.
Because the cinematography, because you've got such a shift change with your lighting and lensing within specific song sequences.
Yes.
And you've got fast cuts with the fast camera movement and the real set. How does that play out when you guys sit down to work this out?
Well, the great thing is that it all comes from the same place. And I love to, maybe because I'm from the theater originally, I like collaboration, especially on a musical. There's so many people involved. I like to sort of pull everybody together. And the mantra for all of us is that it has to come from the story. That's the most important thing. So we're always looking to integrate that and make that lead us throughout. And it was, thank God I had Dion on this. We've done now many musicals together, Colleen Atwood too, and Wyatt as well. Because when you have a team, I feel like it's like my mini Arthur Freed unit from the 50s, from the MGM musicals. Because they were a well-oiled machine that would do these amazing musicals, and it's a little miniature version of that. But I try and bring together that team when I can, and there's a shorthand involved too, which is great.
So now you, as an actor and musical theater, Chad.
Yes, making my return to musical theater.
Making your return, a very successful run just completed in Cannibal, the musical.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see it again soon.
Mm-hmm. Still cleaning the meat out of my teeth.
What are your thoughts on Rob's perspective?
I totally agree. Like, what I loved truly about the movie is that it was very tangible in a way. I was afraid that when it made the translation from stage to screen that it was going to be lost behind a green screen, kind of like Jack and the Giant Killer, like that whole, or even Disney's Once Upon a Time, right, which is very much shot in front of a green screen. And so for me, even though these sets were artificial, they just felt so much more lived in because they were actual sets that they were climbing around and not acting against a wall. And I think exactly what Rob said, like it allows you to feel deeply or more deeply for those characters because you feel like you're in that set. And I think like that was the beauty of me seeing the show like in 1987, because the woods were coming alive. Like they weren't against projected flats either, right? Like the trees were constantly moving and the castle was constantly moving and the characters were happening. And I think what he did beautifully, knowing his theatrical background, is On the Steps of the Palace, which I think is one of my favorite songs in the movie.
And the performance is amazing.
She's amazing. And I think that she's directed beautifully. It's just shot beautifully. But it does feel like a soliloquy to the audience, because you have Chris Pine at the top of the stairs, frozen in time, right, with the coiffed hair blowing, and she is delivering the song to the audience, even though it's cinematic in a way. So for me, it was the perfect marriage of seeing that come together.
Was the original production as emotional and as resonant as the actual film? First time you guys saw it.
I think I appreciate the film more now, and even productions I've seen since then, only because I'm now 56. So, a lot more years of life experience and dealing with life, death, love, loss, and all of that plays in.
Well, it was also the first musical that I saw on Broadway. And so, like, you know, it is fantastical in so many senses of the word, right? Like, because the theater did have, like, the giant's foot hanging off the edge before you went in. And so to grow up with those fairy tales and to see them so juxtaposed and rewoven and re-narrativized was such an amazing treat for a child. But then to go back and have all the psychoanalytic aspects of that as you're an adult, go back and see how those all play out. Like, it's just fascinating. You know, Little Red stands for so many different things than she did when you're seeing it for the first time when you're 15. So,
and I think it's a testament to Stephen Sondheim, the intricacy, the psychological intricacies that he has going on within all of his productions. And I'm looking at the clock and I see it is time for our first commercial break. Sound effects.
It's time to go to the commercial break.
I'll be taking a 45-minute bathroom break. Right, just one.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Behind the Lens is sponsored in part by the Culver City Observer. Located in the heart of Screenland, Culver City Observer is available in print and online at www.culvercityobserver.com. And we are back. And another slice of musical heaven.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you guys, with the opening theme and with the bumper, what do you think? Does it have that Max Steiner cinematic quality that I was looking for?
It does.
Yes.
I feel like a little Sunset Boulevard is happening right here at the... absolutely.
There you go.
Sunset Boulevard, live in Whittier.
Considering I did take Sunset to get here, it does have a very circular feel.
What was that amazing quote at the end where Desmond says, "And all those people in the dark"?
Oh,
we were talking about our audience.
What is that?
That's the most important part of the thing is the audience.
Yeah.
You know, reaching out to those people in the dark. So,
well, hopefully we can reach out to some people here in the course of the show and get them to like keep tuning in. And by the way, because this is a talk show, people, if you're listening live now, you can give us a call. 1-800-405-6425. Yes, and Chad's, when you see the video pack, because this is being 2-camera video, it will be cut and edited by the brilliant Lydia Hawk. Lydia also who did our beautiful graphics.
And she's cutting my face off the video.
Oh.
I am making sure that happens. Just
No. We are a very multi-ethnic group here today.
Yes, we are. And while I mention the posters, I have to give a huge shout out to my friend Mike at DSJ Printing over in Santa Monica, who did these on New Year's Eve day for me.
That's great.
So what kind of mood do you get from looking at the poster?
I like the lavender that's happening because it's like this nice, feminine touch to the perspective, I should say.
To the darkness that is me.
To the darkness that is Norma Desmond. And I love how the lens takes the center focus. Oh, look, we're so punny today. I like how the lens is there because that's what we're here to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I also love, I'm going to go on this. This is my Columbia background coming into training.
Yes, go ahead.
I love how your name is in lower case letters because I feel like you're not here to promote yourself. You're here to promote the work of
That's
other people.
That's a beautiful touch.
Well, and that's actually my legal signature is all lowercase letters.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And it was actually something that I got from Dick Clark, as a matter of fact.
Nice.
Who was a part of my life from the day I was born. But no, because his official logo was always lowercase, and I had asked him once, why he did that. And he said, because I'm not the important one. It's everybody else and what's going on that's important.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So
that's good.
Yes. I still remember when my grandfather got in a huge fight with a bank once because I signed everything and they said, well, no, that's not how you sign a name. He goes, oh, yes, it is.
Hey, just very quickly on Sondheim, what was that song, Send in the Clowns? Where was that
That's
Little Night Music.
Yeah. I remember the first time I listened to that song, I was 5 or 6. I just thought it was really melodic. And then as you get older, you really listen to the lyrics and what the person's trying to say. And it's just so heartbreaking. And that's something...
And Glennis John singing that song is so heartbreaking.
And I think that's what a lot of kids, they're going to go into the woods with all these great fairy tales, kind of a hybrid. And then as they grow into the film, it's going to have so many messages about having your extended family and death and life and rebirth. There's so many things going on with that movie. I just loved it.
And of course, as Rob has so eloquently said many times in promoting the film, it's the message of no one is alone. You always have someone there.
And your actions affect countless others around you. Like, we're all connected because we share space together.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of sharing some space, I got to share a little more space with Rob as he talked about the realizing and converting Sondheim from stage to screen. So, Brian, a clip, please.
Well, you have to be very smart about how you do a translation from stage to film, because you have to hold on to what works, the sort of the central core of the piece that you have to do, because certainly I love this piece, and I was anxious to hold on to what worked about it. But at the same time, if you must reimagine it as a film, because you've seen the film, we've all seen the films that don't make the transition, and they just sort of put the stage musical on film, and it doesn't work because it's a different medium. The great thing is, because James Lapine wrote the original and Stephen Sondheim wrote the original, they came on board to write the screenplay, and Stephen worked with us throughout. And they were so flexible about the material. I mean, even more flexible in a weird way than I was. Like, I was holding on to it much more than they were. Because they understood this was a film. And there are certain things you can't do. I mean, the stage conventions of speaking directly to an audience or singing directly to an audience you can't do on film. It doesn't work. So you have to reimagine those kinds of things, and that's what we did throughout. I mean, Little Red Riding Hood song, Jack's song was reimagined, Cinderella's song on the steps of the palace.
Yeah, just like what you were mentioning earlier, Chad.
So prescient, and I didn't know it.
Little nod to you, by the way. Mr. Marshall said that you said something really beautifully.
Yes.
I've been doing interviews since 91. No one has ever said that to me. They've said, like, maybe, come again? Excuse me? What's that?
They know that you look beautiful, and they don't want to. They can only give you so many compliments in one given day. What I loved hearing just then about saying that Sondheim and Lapine were very good about. I'm on a last name basis with them. That's why I just said
Of course.
that they were so flexible with the stories. Is I do feel that stories also do change over time as well as we move as a society, or as the stories take on new resonance. So it's nice to hear for that room being allowed for that kind of flexibility or permutation and combination, knowing that the mediums are different, so that necessitates the telling of a different story.
Well, and something that concerned me, and I even brought it up in my review, and I brought it up to Rob, was the fact that you're going into film and you have this whole big cinematic toolbox at your disposal. I was surprised he was as restrained as he was, because there are so many directors that would have just gone way over the top into beyond Cecil B. DeMille biblical proportion.
Right.
And he didn't. So I had to ask him about that. And here's what he had to say.
With all the tools in the cinematic toolbox, was it difficult for you to hold back on using all the tools at your disposal?
I try and serve. It's funny. The most important thing is to serve the actor for me, and serve the piece, and serve the story. And so I only use the tools that you're describing when that enhances that. When it overwhelms it, and it's something that it's so fancy filmmaking. I mean, I like to. It should look like I was never there. That's what I feel. I feel it should feel like it's unfolding naturally, organically, flowing, fluidly. Same with the editing, same with all of it. It should look like it's all happening, and we're just involved in that. If there's too much of me in there, or too much of Dion or whatever. It's just then you're taken out of the film. I want you to go into the woods, or to go into this piece and feel like you're inside it and it's happening organically, and that's what I'm always looking for.
And that, to me, that satisfied my curiosity as to why it wasn't more than it was. And I think that that Rob's editor, Wyatt Smith, said it best. Story is king. And we'll hear from Wyatt shortly. Had a wonderful conversation with him, as I did with Dennis Gassner, the production designer, who did an amazing job with production design. I mean, the entire below-the-line team here, and as Rob has referred to them, his mini Arthur Freed unit, this is very much a collaborative effort that harkens to the days of MGM and their musicals.
Well, there is a Wizard of Oz aspect, I think, too, about Into the Woods, because it sometimes feels like it's shot on a soundstage, which is magical. So there's this hearkening back to those musicals, I think, which Into the Woods does really well.
Well, and also this year, another big spectacle that we saw from Disney, Maleficent. My dear old friend Bob Stromberg, who stepped up and directed this one, he also sets as much as possible. And I really love that we're seeing that great return. We saw it with Captain America: The Winter Soldier. They did things as practically as they could. And I think that makes a difference for the audience.
It's just something that's more tangible and tactile, and it just feels much more lived in, like the worlds that you would have created playing these characters as a child, right? So, there might be children that go and draw it all on their wall and just act against a wall, but I know I, for one, was like throwing blankets everywhere and, taking cereal boxes and building trees. So I think
just only cereal boxes?
I grew up on General Mills, as you can tell by looking at my belly, or Kellogg's. So yes, Pop-Tarts. My mother, we were just joking about this yesterday. I never had a fresh vegetable until I moved out of the house. We grew up on canned vegetables. So if it wasn't in a can or a box, we weren't eating it.
Yeah, well, that was my mother.
Those are better for you anyway, the canned stuff. By the way, just one. You know what? I think Marshall was a perfect filmmaker for this, because the story here is king, along with the book and the lyrics and the theme. So if you had someone who's kind of auteur-driven, where the filmmaker is ahead of the project, then I think Into the Woods wouldn't have worked. Because Marshall let the story shine as opposed to let his own toolbox and all his tricks and trades. But sometimes, like if you do like a psychological drama or a thriller that actually hinges upon the personality of the filmmaker, then that works. But something with a broad canvas like this, it's perfect for Marshall.
Well, and speaking of that, you bring that up, Greg, we've got to look at Dan Gilroy and Nightcrawler.
Oh.
Because, talk about...
one of the best films of the year.
One of the best films of the year.
I'm lagging behind. I need to see that. Creepy sometimes gets to me.
And we have a caller.
Oh, yay.
We do. All right, now let's see if I can do this correctly. You're on Behind the Lens. Scott?
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. This is my dear, dear friend, Scott Barton.
Hello, Scott.
Hi, guys. It's so exciting for this first broadcast that you're talking about Into the Woods, and my favorite thing ever of Sondheim.
Yay! What is your favorite song from Into the Woods?
Just musically, Steps of the Palace is my favorite.
Yeah. Yep.
Emotionally, Children Will Listen, and No More, which I kind of missed in the movie, although they used the melody of it while Baker was grieving using his wife's scarf. I thought that was beautifully done.
Well, I'm sorry. I like Agony. Okay.
Well, yeah, but you could turn the sound off and like that. At least I could. I don't want to speak for anybody else.
Well, keep listening, because Colleen Atwood I have a clip coming from my interview with Colleen, and she just has the best anecdote about Chris Pine.
Oh, yay.
That you will absolutely love. But while I have you on the line here, Scott, I I've got to give a big mention to a project that is near and dear to your heart. It has become near and dear to mine. That's going to be taking place on May 9th. It is the S.T.A.G.E annual 31st anniversary spectacular to support AIDS Project LA to Broadway from Hollywood with Love.
Oh, that's amazing.
And
it's a pretty incredible event, I have to say. And Debbie, thank you so much for all your support of it. This is my 30th year being part of it, so it's kind of a milestone for me. And what I really am encouraged by it is the theme this year is Broadway musicals that originally were Hollywood films. And David Galligan is such a historian of both. So we'll be doing things like The Matchmaker that was turned into Hello, Dolly, and All About Eve that eventually became Applause. And I have no other idea of what he's got going on, but there's a million ways to go with it. You could do things from Beauty and the Beast, because that was originally an animated film. So there's opportunities to pull some really great music that was done on Broadway from stories that originated in film. And it just shows, that the arts are the full circle, that we all feed each other, and creativity knows no limits, and we all share with each other. So I'm really excited for this year's event.
Well, and last year's was just absolutely phenomenal with S.T.A.G.E Goes to the Movies. Robert Osborne hosted it. Shirley Jones was there. Davis Gaines. Carol Cook, of course. Carol is always part of S.T.A.G.E.
Always. This is her 29th year.
And Carol, I know she has already sworn up and down she is going to be on this show with me.
Well, if I have to pick her up in West Hollywood and drive her to Whittier, I will do that to make sure that this happens.
Well, I told her, no, she can just call in. I don't want Carol, we need her on stage. So let's not risk anything or jeopardize her.
I'm kind of being selfish. I would love to have the opportunity to go pick her up and have her alone in the car with me for an hour each way.
Make sure that wasn't taped,
just
actually.
Dish our brains out, coming and going, and 11 o'clock's not such a bad hour. So, we've got a few months to lead up to that, but I'm holding out hope.
Well, I can't wait for this, and you know that I'm on board, 100%, 110% with you on promoting this year's event.
Well, thank you. I am so excited for your show. This is a perfect spot for you, and you can fill 3 hours easier than anybody I know with your vast knowledge of things. And I love your energy, and I love how positively you look at this often cruddy industry. But there are nuggets of brilliance amongst all that stuff. I'm trying to not use words that...
Yeah, because I haven't figured out how to use all the little buttons yet, so,
Being online, do you have to? Does that even matter?
No, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it still matters.
I guess working at Playboy Radio, I have no filter. I didn't have
Well...
That gave me license to just be vulgar, but I'm trying to be somewhat erudite here, since you're talking about Sondheim.
Well, yes, we all try and be erudite and up the game when we talk about Sondheim. I'm
trying to pull out polysyllabic words right now to make you think that I actually am smart.
Aw, well, I think you're very smart. And I'm so glad you're listening, and I'm so thrilled that you called, Scott.
Well, I had to cheer you on. This is huge.
Well, keep listening, and you can hear some more exclusive stuff on Into the Woods.
Well, I can't wait.
Thank you, Scott, and I'll talk to you later.
Good luck, y'all. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye. Scott is just an absolute sweethart.
First caller.
And I figured out how to use the button.
Cool.
Yay! Chad's here giving, fake. Brian's my sound engineer and producer in the back. Brian is applauding me. And he's talking, but we can't hear him.
I can't applaud you because my hands are shaking.
That's okay. But I think right now, it is time that
for a commercial break. You can hear me now.
Oh,
that we go to a commercial break.
Bum-ba-da-dum-bum.
I love Chad's sound effects.
yes.
Located in the heart of Screenland, Culver City Observer is the #1 newspaper in Culver City, covering local news, politics, and community events, with sports by Mitch Chortkoff and movie reviews by Debbie Lynn Elias. Culver City Observer is the place to go to be in the know. When you think Culver City and the heart of Screenland, think Culver City Observer. When you think movies and movie reviews, think Culver City Observer. Culver City Observer, a division of Arizona Newspaper Group, is available in print and online at www.culvercityobserver.com. And we're back. You're listening to Behind the Lens and a little below the line. I'm Debbie Lynn Elias. I've got Greg here. I've got Chad Miller here. I'm not even going to try and script your last name. Okay?
Greg, whoever this guy is.
Greg, whoever this guy is.
The guy with the sweater.
The guy with the sweater. We're so
Yeah,
color
cool.
coordinated.
Yep.
All of us were very color coordinated today.
We match.
Just had publicist Scott Barton call in. Hey, feel free. Call in. We're here. I'll talk. 800-405-6425. Well, I'd love to hear from you. And we'll go back into the woods here a little bit. One aspect that we haven't really talked about yet is the casting of Into the Woods. And one of the big questions with a film like this that has such a long history on stage, who do you get? Do you get your stage actors to come and do the film? Or with so many actors now who are Mamma Mia, perfect example. You had people, Pierce Brosnan singing. Okay. I'm sorry, Pierce. I'm sorry. I promised you I'd never bring that up again. But so you do have a plethora of people, but here are some really great unexpected surprises. So Rob Marshall talked about his casting process.
Meryl, I had in mind. I was looking to do something with her. We had talked about doing something a few years before, and I was desperate to work with her, as any director is, I believe. And I was excited about working with Johnny again, having worked with him on Pirates, because he's an amazing man, and I knew he wanted to have a small part in something and be part of an ensemble. So I thought that this could work for him. But everybody else was the classic casting that you have to do. I didn't have anybody else in mind. So started the process of that. You know, some people, I knew Anna Kendrick could sing. I didn't know Emily Blunt could sing. I didn't know Chris Pine could sing until they came in and sang. You know, I have this interesting philosophy about casting. I always feel that if I've done my job, I have to make no decisions whatsoever because they're made for me. Because the actors come in and claim the role. Like Emily Blunt came in and sang Moments in the Woods and said, "This is my role." Because she had everything: the humor, the warmth, the accessibility, the depth, the voice. You know, it's like that. This is my part. And Chris Pine too. I had no idea he was that funny. I had no idea he was that clever and smart. I didn't know he could sing until he sang Frank Sinatra's "Fly Me to the Moon" is what he said.
Oh, wow.
Because he loves Frank Sinatra. He said, and I was like, wow, you really have a voice. So it's this wonderful, the casting process is very interesting on a musical because they're so few and far between, so you don't know who really can do it. And I always try and do it not in a, you know, when they audition, I don't sit behind a table and I get up. I try and treat it like a work session. And John DeLuca and myself, John, who produced this with me, we do it together. And we listen, you know, we pretend it's the first day of rehearsal kind of thing, so they feel, you know, more free to do their best work.
Now, as an actor, Chad, is that something that you encounter? Do you like that casting process when the director is up and walking and more engaged with you?
Yes, I do like that. I mean, I definitely feel that it is a collaborative process, but I like what he said about that he feels, he didn't use these words, but safe and secure enough that knowing the actor can come in there and claim the role, or the actors can come in there and claim the role. And so he doesn't have to do that heavy lifting because he's already, through the casting process, done that. That's what I like. I think what's really helpful about having a director when you're doing an ensemble piece is like, clearly they know the overall narrative that they're trying to do. And so as an actor, you sometimes need that guidance in making sure that you're fitting within what that overall narrative is. That your story isn't becoming the story, or, you know, to use somebody's lyrics and song, I'm in another story, right? Like, you want to make sure that you're in the same story that's being told, unless that other story is integral to the plot. I am also equally surprised that Emily Blunt could sing, and so well. Like, literally blown away by her performance. And James Corden, who I literally fell in love with watching. I mean, like, he's such an amazing actor.
Have you seen the other two films that came out, Begin Again, that he's in, and Once?
I didn't see either one of those, nor did I see the Hulu series, The Wrong Man or something.
Right.
But they are in my queue because he's so lovable and affable and neurotic and comedic and the everyman. Like, I can't imagine. I mean, you know, seeing it on Broadway, you have a definite idea and voice in your mind. And I never would have picked somebody like James Corden, but now I can't imagine anybody not doing it because I think he's so indelibly made that role his own.
And I think that's one of the great things with this film is these actors have made these roles and performances so indelible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, Meryl Streep, Chris Pine. I can't ever picture anybody but singing Agony again, but for Chris Pine.
I know, and I think that's a true testament to the work of the actors and the filmmaker, like, and the costuming, the design, the editing, all of it, and that you walk away from this with. Because let me back up. I know I went to go see it twice, and I went to go see it with people that were very diehard. Like, I saw the musical, and nothing is going to, you know, change me from how awesome the musical was. And then they walk away, and they're like, "Oh, you know what? I actually kind of like that interpretation." Wow, nice. Right? Because like it just somehow works. I think the way that it's told. There are some things like cinematically that are a little hard to, you know, like the jump starts in and out of songs, but. I mean, overall, there was not a single casting choice that I thought, why the hell did they do that? Right? Like, it just didn't. It's not the cast that I would have picked out if you would have given me a dream team, but now walking away from it, I can't imagine anybody different in those roles.
I would have loved to have seen this film in a packed house. Friday night, you know, family night kind of thing, and just see that kind of reaction, or even a matinee.
Well, we went on a Friday night, and people were clapping after the musical numbers. Like, it felt like being in a Broadway, and you could hear all down the road, like during certain songs, people are whispering the lyrics along, you know, like, or patting it out on their song. Like, it was clearly people that had, you know, some kind of relationship to the material already.
Well,
that's one. Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, so we can only hope now that we will see an Into the Woods sing along.
Oh, but the El Capitan will raise the roof on that.
I think one of the negative parts of what we do is we go to a lot of screenings, so the kind of reaction we get are very nonplussed, very unemotional reactions, because it's usually our fourth or fifth film of the week, and there's no heartbeat.
I don't know what circuit you're on doing 4 or 5 films.
Okay, I do one every 2 months. No, but you know what I'm talking about, that grind.
Absolutely, yeah.
And sometimes I feel the people who actually, the public that they let in on the screenings, I'd rather have them take the really good seats and put us somewhere off the cheap seats, because I miss that kind of real, organic reaction.
And being able to see the audience take part in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a dialogue.
Yeah.
Well, and part of the dialogue with Into the Woods involves the editing, because the editing of this film is so crucial. The visuals and pacing have to match the lyrical, melodic flow of both the music and the story. And here Rob Marshall called on, you know, part of his mini Arthur Freed unit, Wyatt Smith. This is his 4th collaboration with Rob. And I got to talk to him about the challenges of the editing. And here's what he had to say.
You said the key word. It's pacing. I mean, for anything you're editing, I mean, story is king. Story is the most important, and that's what you have to address first. Then you have to get the best performances for that story. But the pace at which you tell it is crucial. I mean, it's movies, they always feel too long. No movie is ever the right length. And in the case of Sondheim, the language is so complicated and so verbose, but very beautiful. And you can't let that get lost, because those songs, you know, they can't be flashy music videos. Those songs are the scenes. Those are the character dilemmas. That is what they're going through. So getting the pace of all that right is obviously, I mean, paramount. You know, the story, thankfully, because there was a stage show, and because James Lapine and Stephen Sondheim and Rob were all involved in creating the screenplay, I mean, there's things that we had to to address in the story that didn't quite work, and some reorders and some cuts and things like that. But the story was pretty solid and proven. The performances, I mean, we've got, one of the best casts on the planet. It's such like, I'm the luckiest editor in the world. It's an embarrassment of riches. I mean, even when an actor might be on their B game, it's still pretty phenomenal. So thankfully, performances also came very easy to find what were the best performances. It just became very clear. But pacing the film was the thing that was never easy, never simple, never, okay, that's good, move on. And then once the entire film was built together, sure, we went back and recut some things and stuff like that, but working on the shape of the entire film, that was the main editorial challenge the entire time.
And, and hand in hand with Wyatt's editing, in this particular case, goes Dion Beebe's cinematography, because of the shifting change with the lighting, the lensing within a specific song sequence. There's fast camera movement, there are fast edits, but you can't lose that lyricism. So he talked a little bit about that and the collaboration in terms of cutting while viewing in light of the cinematography.
Thankfully, that does come, a certain amount of that will come naturally by design with Rob, because he really has such a strong vision for everything. But also, there is a bit of a shorthand between all of us, because he has this team that I'm honored to have been a part of, again, of Dion Beebe and Colleen Atwood. In this case, Dennis Gassner is our designer, and Peter King for hair and makeup, and myself. And it's just, we're able to go to each other and talk about everything very freely. There's no, introductions, or maybe I shouldn't bug you, or things like that, because we know each other at this point. There's such an open communication about things, and we let that filter into things. I mean, anything that concerns Colleen, she just can come and tell me. And I talked to Dion on set, and he's like, oh, look out for this. And it's great to have all that going in.
I mean, this is, you really see when you talk to, the people behind the lens, you really do get a great appreciation and sense of the challenges that they're facing.
Oh, absolutely.
And the collaborative nature of the process. And not to be left out, the Oscar-winning costume designer Colleen Atwood.
Never heard of.
Never heard. I mean, her work here is stunning, and I got to talk to her in depth on several issues and several design circumstances, not only with Into the Woods, but she was also doing Big Eyes at the same time.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
So, so this is a great, and working with Tim Burton.
Right.
So you've got very different styles, very different films. So here's, I talked to her first about the costume work of Into the Woods, and here's what she had to say.
Costume work with Into the Woods is stunning. Your color palettes, your fabrications, and what you've done with, especially with Meryl's costuming, you've got that wooded, the foresty kind of texture, and as she gets pretty, it becomes satin with the same kind of moire textures to it. What were your considerations when you sat down to design the costumes and have this thematic element running through your fabrics?
Well, I think because the woods was the place everyone came and went, that I wanted it to be part of each of their worlds in a way, so I used it as kind of an inspiration for the textiles that I created for the film. And in Meryl's case, I knew, with Rob, we have a 4-week rehearsal period with that talent, which is almost unheard of in film today. And I knew what her intro into the film was going to be, was her in this tree. And I wanted it to be that she looked like part of the tree almost, that you couldn't really separate them. And the first time you saw her, you see this face and this hair, but the costume and the tree are sort of like, it's almost like it's made out of this gnarly bark. So I knew that was kind of where I wanted to go with that. And I'd been developing that textile for a while. I kind of played around with it on a couple things. One on a movie that didn't happen, so I kind of had it in my, when am I going to use this kind of thing. And then when it came to the transition, I was meeting with her and her hair and makeup collaborator, Roy Helen. And we started talking. I said, I really want it to be like you took that and amplified it, like that was like in her mind, if she took her witches thing and made it all pretty in that kind of suburban kind of way, that it became this kind of satin version of the same thing. The sleeves are bigger, the waist is smaller, the cleavage is a little bit more, the hair is definitely a lot more, that whole kind of everything matched kind of mentality with it. So something, she thought her teenage daughter would be proud of, instead of embarrassed by, like kind of that sort of superficial kind of beauty.
But with a film like this, be it, or a story like this, be it stage or on film, because of the fluidity and the continual movement, is that a big consideration in your designs to allow the actors to have the necessary, say, leg room, like Anna Kendrick in the gold dress going up and down stairs? And the tar, yeah. Does that come into play when you're designing?
Yeah. I mean, when you do a project like this, which is music, and it's not really dance in the literal world, but it's basically dance. It's the same as doing an action costume, because it has to have the same sort of function as an action costume. So all the costumes have element of stretch in the corset so people can breathe. I have different versions of the shoes for different action. I have different versions and lengths of costume for different action. Like there are a couple different lengths of the witch's costume, because the forest floor, even though it was a set, was really like uneven, and so if your dress is too long, you're tripping on it when you step down. And Meryl had these really high platforms we used a few times to try to elongate the sort of witch thing in the glamour part, but we ended up doing a shorter version of the dress because it was hopeless to try to walk around in those kind of shoes on that kind of surface. Anna's costume was, I wanted her Cinderella costume to be something that kind of was like a butterfly wing that came and went, like you saw it sometimes and you didn't at others, because it wasn't really her, but it was her. So I wanted to try to convey that, so I used that fabric and material. In regards to the tar, I made them experiment a lot with it so I could know. The fabric was a vintage fabric that I owned, and it was just the right fabric, and I couldn't really find a modern equivalent for it. So when we got to the tar part, I collaborated before with special effects on how we were going to do that. So we got a tar that we could actually sponge out of the dress. Nice. So even though I had 2 or 3 dresses, I could keep cleaning them up for the next shot. It's kind of tight when you have 2, because if something happens, but 3 is okay. You can keep it moving.
I mean, that gold fabric.
You're sweating the whole time, but it keeps going.
I was wondering if it was vintage, because it looked like something like right out of the MGM costume.
Yeah, it's a 30s fabric.
Yeah, stunning.
It's from old Paramount stock.
Oh, okay.
So we keep going back to Arthur Freed at MGM, 30s Paramount stock. The history of film is very much present today. And as part of that, since Rob Marshall's the one that brought it up to begin with, I had to ask him before the day ended, do you have a favorite film out of the Arthur Freed unit? And this is it.
I have to ask you, do you have a favorite film out of Freed's unit that influenced you?
Well, Singing in the Rain is just like, it's just such an obvious one, and everybody says it, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's a perfect musical in every way.
And Chad is sitting here very happy and silently applauding.
I'm like the trained monkey. I'm just clanging my cymbals.
Yeah, there's so many. And I have to say, for all of my classic film fans out there, all my TCM party people, if you don't have it, if you want to learn more about the Arthur Freed Unit, a great book, MGM's Greatest Musicals, The Arthur Freed Unit by Hugh Forden, Meet Me in St. Louis, Gigi, Wizard of Oz, Showboat, American in Paris, Easter Parade, Babes on Broadway, Silk Stockings, Ziegfeld Folly, Singin' in the Rain, Kismet, For Me and My Gal, Girl Crazy, Bells Are Ringing, Annie Get Your Gun,
Bells Are Ringing,
Pagan Love Song, Bandwagon. This is phenomenal.
Do you have a personal favorite from that list you just announced?
From that list, it's a tough one between An American in Paris and Singin' in the Rain. But they all have something. And what I love with this book, and having known so many people who worked at MGM in the golden days, so many who are no longer here, I know I have heard the stories and the facts that are in the book.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
And of course, Sony is now in the old MGM studio lot. Actually, my condo sits on top of what was lot number 5 of the MGM studios. So I have great love.
Yes.
Great love. And we're coming close to running out of time today. This hour has just gone by so
fast.
Quickly. I just want to let people know, Big Eyes, Tim Burton film. Colleen Atwood does the costuming, Christoph Waltz, and Amy Adams star. They are phenomenal in it. The screenwriters are going to be at Book Soup tonight. There's actually a book coming out of the screenplay, and they're going to be doing a Q&A and talking. And hopefully I'll be doing an interview with them later on this week.
Very talented writers.
They are amazing. Amazing. And we didn't get to talk about Big Eyes today, but we will in the future. So, Golden Globes coming up between now and next Monday when we're back again. Chad's making faces.
I'm just excited to watch Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. I mean, like, that's
the reason to watch the Globes.
No, that is not the reason to watch the Globes, but I'm doing Groundlings now too, so the comedy, I just want to see how they deal with this year's material, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited because I love the HFPA.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm so glad that you love the HFPA.
They're great people, and but just for the polars and the hosts and whatnot, and the HFPA. That's the reason why. I'm just kind of incensed that The Drop didn't get any kind of nominations. No one has seen The Drop. I just love The Drop.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's just selfish.
I don't even know that.
See?
What is that?
It's a Tom Hardy film. Locke got the most.
I love Tom Hardy.
Yeah,
well,
you got a lot of run for Locke.
Yeah, Locke is amazing.
0 for The Drop, which you didn't like too much, maybe?
Nah, not especially.
Yeah.
But Locke
has a little bit. Don't listen.
Oh,
No, don't lock on Debbie. Lock on me.
I love this. This is good parent, bad parent. Trying to be like, well.
No, what are you excited the most as far as the Golden Globes next week?
For the Golden Globes next week, I'm really excited. Eddie Redmayne and Jake Gyllenhaal are my 2 top picks for Best Lead Actor. In the motion picture drama, HFPA, because they break it out into the musical comedy and the drama, break out.
Mm-hmm.
Out of their choices of Boyhood, Foxcatcher, Imitation Game, Selma, and The Theory of Everything, while a lot of pundits are saying Boyhood's going to take it, when you look at the Best Picture, and we're getting our countdown here. So now we're just going to have to wait until next Monday and see who wins. So thank you all for tuning in today to the very first Behind the Lens. We'll be back every Monday, 11 to 12 on Adrenaline Radio.
We hate to leave, but we must go.
I have a French horn to play.
A French horn to play. Okay.
Yes.
Well, next week, bring it next week because you're going to be here next week along with Joel Amos, movie fanatic.
Great.
You will be back again soon.
I hope so. Yes.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Happy.
To grandmother's house.
He's going Disneyland.